So it's October, which means it's the time of year when I love heading to the desert. Almost every year, I figure out a way to leave the gathering darkness of the Pacific Northwest fall and get like the last dose of sunshine in the desert. It's super important. This year, we pulled the kids out of school for another lap down the Green River. For days, we paddled, pulling off at night or in the afternoon to make camp on a sandy beach or secluded canyon. We wandered through sandstone alleyways, cannonballed from river rocks, endured a thunderstorm of truly epic proportions. Seriously, it was insane. And generally basked in days far away from computer screens and the hustle of our Seattle lives. One night, after a particularly pleasant day of paddling and hiking, Becca and I stayed up to look at the stars. The kids are in bed, they're in the tent. We're sitting on top of this rock outcropping right above the river. So like we're 20 feet above the river. And, the fire's getting low. The wind from the afternoon, it's like settled into this perfect calm. There's no moon. The Milky Way is like as best as I've ever seen it. So good. And then that was the moment that the sound started. Something large hit the water. And we continued talking, like as everyone usually does in those situations. Like, did not hear that, but I'm pretty sure Becca had heard it. And then again. We stopped talking. Then the river gurgled. Something large seemed to be moving through the water below us. The sound of bubbles rising. For real? Again. A fish? That would be one very big fish, Becca pointed out. And so we sat in silence. And again, the sound of something large entering the water reverberated through the stillness. Curiosity tugged. What could it be? Maybe if I went back down to the tamarisk, down by the boats, maybe with my headlamp at the edge of the river, I might be able to see right next to the deep water. And then I realized that I was in the middle of my own tale of terror. And I thought, I am good. I think it's time to go to bed now. So that's what I did. Screw that sound. We seek solitude. We find that place a little further out to camp, a couple of extra miles down the trail, just a little farther out. Sometimes it's curiosity that pulls us out there, off the beaten path. Maybe it's a love for quiet, of open spaces. Maybe the late afternoon light feels just a little more perfect in that isolated basin where no one else has set up camp. But what happens when the sun goes down? When the darkness closes in and we're left in our isolated bubbles of tepid headlamp light? Shadows start to move. Noises become bigger. The breeze turns just a little bit colder. It's as if the very boundaries of what we think is possible begin to shift, to reveal something sinister. You're alone, and you do not know what's out there. Welcome to Tales of Terror. I'm Fitzco Hall. You're listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. Be afraid. Very afraid.
A few months earlier, I'd moved back to Australia after years of skiing in British Columbia. I missed the mountains. I missed the solitude, so I planned a solo overnight ski tour in Victoria's alpine country. Gentle terrain, familiar hut, early spring snow. "You're going alone?" a friend asked, eyebrows raised. "Watch out for the button man," another warned, half joking. The button man. A local legend. Maybe a harmless bushman who lives off the grid and sells deer antler buttons to get by. Maybe a killer. Stories vary, but they all agree on one thing. He appears out of nowhere in remote camps, emerging from the dark to question why you're there. I brushed it off. I'd grown up with stories of bushrangers and mountain cattlemen. I knew these mountains. I loaded my tiny Toyota Yaris with skis and gear, drove the winding road to the trailhead, and clicked into my bindings. The 4.6-kilometre skin to Kingspur Hut was peaceful. Just me, the wind in the snow gums, and the crows overhead. No one else. The hut was small. Wooden walls, a bench, a stove. I unrolled my sleeping bag, lit a fire, and made dinner. As night fell, I stepped outside. With no towns nearby and the crisp subalpine air, the stars felt impossibly bright. It was beautiful. Still. Too still. A nervous feeling crept in. No cell service, no lock on the door, no other skiers. I told myself I was fine. I'd been here with friends just weeks ago. Back inside, the fire popped softly. I lay in my bag, drifting off. Not wind, not animals. I held my breath. They stopped right outside the hut, then started circling. Once, twice. My skis were outside leaning by the wall, a sign someone was inside. I tried to stay logical. This is a public hut, I whispered to myself. Someone must have started late. But why were they circling? I thought of the button man, of hikers who'd disappeared. My heart thudded so hard I felt it in my teeth. The steps kept going. Crunching, deliberate, around and around. After what felt like half an hour, I couldn't take it anymore. I reached slowly out of my sleeping bag, fumbled for my headlamp, heart pounding in my ears. I counted. 1, 2, 3. Light flooded the hut. I jumped up and scanned the windows. Nothing. The footsteps had stopped. I threw on a jacket, cracked open the door. Moonlight gleamed off fresh snow. Ghostly snow gums swayed in the breeze. I saw only one set of ski tracks. Mine. I stepped back inside, dragging a bench in front of the door. Tried to calm my breathing. Tried to convince myself it was all in my head and climbed back into bed. I snapped upright. This was real. My imagination couldn't crunch snow. I fumbled for my phone and hit record. Proof if I needed it. Button man, ghost, something. I grabbed the headlamp, hands shaking, and turned toward the wall with the window. There, staring straight at me, was the fattest, furriest, cutest creature I'd ever seen. A broad-toothed mouse. A literal fluff ball perched on my backpack, chewing through my emergency ramen noodles like it hadn't eaten in weeks. It blinked at me, unimpressed, then went back to munching. Turns out when these chunky marsupials gnaw through plastic and get a hold of some raw noodles, it sounds eerily, exactly, like footsteps in the snow. I looked around. Sure enough, a trail of ramen crumbs circled the hut. My midnight stalker hadn't been a bushman or a ghost, just one very determined alpine rodent and my own adrenaline-fueled imagination. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Still, I slept with the headlamp on.
One Christmas, I decided to run away from the world and spend 3 days backpacking the Connecticut stretch of the Appalachian Trail. I planned the hike from one end of the state to the other, starting on December 23. After spotting my car at the southern border, my friend Joseph drove me to the northern end and hiked with me for a stretch before saying goodbye. It was the last human contact I planned on having for 3 days. Deep into the first evening, I arrived at a tent site at the bottom of a steep ravine. By that point, it was pitch black, and I explored the site by headlamp, finding the outhouse, the lean-to, the picnic table, and the bear box. The site was adjacent to a shallow, bubbling brook, and the whole place smelled of pine needles. I cooked my dinner by candlelight in the calm evening, and after storing my food away in the bear box, I was lulled to sleep by the hooting of an owl. It was wonderful. The trail is bisected by crossroads every 7 miles or so, each having a parking lot, and yet I never saw a car parked at any of them. It was just me out there, along with the squirrels hopping through the leaves and the deer in the fields below. The only tracks I saw on the bare ground were in the muddy patches on the trail. All looked pretty old. Throughout the next day, I cruised along, enjoying the solitude and the views. The forests were wide open, and the tired and very old white blazings were few and far between. Sometimes I had to work to find the trail through the fallen leaves and the blowdowns, and that was part of the fun. On my third day, a massive snowstorm blew in, and before I knew it, I was caught in a whiteout. Enveloped in a dense cloud of light puffy snow, falling as fast as snow can fall. In just minutes, the rocky slabs I had been hiking on had a thin layer of snow, and that made for a problem. The AT in Connecticut does not have cairns on the slabs. Instead, the white blazings are painted directly on the slabs themselves. In the span of a few minutes, all markers of where the route went completely disappeared. There I was, in the middle of a whiteout, with no indication of where I was supposed to go, until I looked down. Because all of a sudden, there were footprints in the snow. Heading away from me, these footprints traversed the slabs without any apparent doubt of where to go. There was no doubling back, no first going this way, and then the other, as happens when people are struggling to find the route. Just a straight line with a steady stride. There hadn't been any cars in the parking lot. I hadn't seen any fresh boot prints in the muddy spots on the trail beforehand. But now, there were footprints in the light powdery snow, fresh enough not to have been blown away by the wind. Gratefully, I just trucked along, following the path laid out for me by the trail angel ahead. On and on we went, mile after mile in the swirling snow. In fairness, there were long stretches where it was clear where the trail was, but there were plenty where it was not. Still, the hiker ahead of me never seemed to stop in order to question which way to go. All I had to do was hike on and follow. At one point, I decided to speed up and catch up with my fellow hiker. But as fast as I went, and as hard as I looked, I never caught so much as a glimpse of that individual, who really shouldn't have been all that far ahead. Then, as quickly as it started, the storm blew through, and the sun came back out. Under the blue skies and renewed sunlight, the light, powdery snow quickly melted off, and soon the trail appeared again. The footprints simply disappeared. Even in the muddy spots, I saw only deer tracks. Once the storm ended and I could follow the trail on my own again, my trail angel seemed to have disappeared. At the next parking lot, once again, there were no cars parked. For the rest of the day, I saw no evidence of someone hiking ahead of me. I want to assume this was a local hiker who knew the trail like the back of their hand, but the pieces don't all fit together as nicely as they should. The one thing I can say with certainty is that I went on the trail just to be alone. And yet somehow a trail angel managed to be there for me the second I needed one.
Coming up, 3 more spine-tingling tales. Stay with us. I dare you. I was on a run the other day, and I turned onto a little spur trail I hadn't been down before, and boom, there was this giant cedar tree. It was over 100 years old, and I thought, dang, you've seen a lot since you're a little seedling, and it made me appreciate all the trees around me. Sure makes the world a better place. That's just one of the reasons why Oboz Footwear has been committed to planting trees for each pair of hiking shoes sold. As a certified B Corporation, Oboz cares about their impact on the planet and invests in a number of initiatives that aim to restore the natural environment. Since 2007, they've helped plant over 6.6 million trees. You might even be able to see some of those trees in Oregon, where Douglas fir trees are planted to restore areas affected by wildfire. Thanks, Oboz, for supporting the show, but more importantly, thanks for planting trees. To find your next pair of footwear, check out obozfootwear.com/lovehiking. Oboz Footwear. Love hiking. So a few years ago, I made a goal of swimming every single month in the winter through the whole shebang. Lakes, rivers, oceans, it doesn't matter, just outside. Some of my favorites are Cascade Lake after trail running on Moran State Park, Lake Easton when the traffic's bad on the interstate after a long weekend, and a quick dip in the Salish Sea while tide pooling at Larrabee State Park. The Washington Discover Pass is your key to accessing Washington State Park's recreation sites, natural areas, and more. When you purchase a Discover Pass, you aren't just buying a parking pass, you're helping care for public lands. You're directly supporting conservation and recreation opportunities, you're keeping bathrooms open and trails maintained. You're caring for forests and protecting seashores. And that is more important than ever. Our state lands belong to all of us, and the Discover Pass helps us protect and enjoy them together. Get your Discover Pass at discoverpass.wa.gov. Okay, there's really only one way to get in shape for bike packing, and that's to go bike packing. And the same is probably true for backpacking, because it's hard to put in the big days. I just got back from an awesome week-long trip. It was a push between the amount of miles and the altitude, and one of the things I did is I brought along Kachava. Kachava is a whole body meal shake that keeps your body and mind nourished all day. With 2 scoops of Kachava, you get 85 plus superfoods, nutrients, and plant-based ingredients. So not only was I getting 25 grams of plant-based proteins to kind of feed the legs, I'm also getting adaptogens and supergreens, which I think are really important for me. Added bonus, there's no artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. Kachava has 6 flavors to choose from. My favorite is chocolate because, it's frickin' chocolate. Your future self will thank you. Go to Kachava.com and use the code DIARIES for 15% off your next order. That's Kachava, Kachava.com, code DIARIES for 15% off. Go check it.
My body still hummed from the climb through and over Goat Rocks the day before, but my stomach had already set its course for White Pass and the promise of a proper meal. 100 days and 2,300 miles into my Pacific Crest Trail hike, my legs were eager for the final stretch to Canada. The trail dropped and switched back to Highway 12, where I found myself outside the Cracker Barrel store. After grabbing my resupply box, I inhaled a gas station feast: frozen burritos, greasy pizza, and root beer. Before reloading my food bag, familiar faces clustered behind the store, but I was eager to move on. Dance On and Ladybug stopped me on the way out, and we agreed to meet 12 miles up the trail. I promised to save a campsite. The miles slipped beneath my boots. I passed ponds reflecting slivers of afternoon light until I reached the Jug Lake Trail junction. A meadow spread before me, golden green in the fading sun, but every flat spot was already filled with tents. Reluctantly, I crossed a bridge up the trail and took a spur into the trees. Beneath the dense canopy, I found a wide, pine-needled clearing. Perfect, yet strangely empty. My first thought was unsettling. If the meadow's crowded, why is no one camped here? I set up anyway and waited. My friends never arrived, and I made my ramen dinner alone, the air thick and silent. After finishing my nightly journal entry, I pushed in my earplugs and let the 26 miles of exhaustion take me. A deep growl pulled me awake. Or did I dream it? My heart thudded as I tore my earplugs free. Nothing but silence. Moonlight shifted through the branches. I convinced myself it was nothing. Until I realized I had to pee. I waited until I couldn't wait anymore. I reached into a familiar tent pocket and grabbed my headlamp. I was keenly aware that I hadn't used this light in the middle of the night since I was still close to Mexico. I unzipped the tent slowly, headlamp in hand, and wrapped it around my crusty head. The grove was still, unnervingly still. I stepped to a nearby tree, relieved myself, and turned back towards my tent. That is when I heard it. Heavy, deliberate, not a deer. Something moved. A bulky shadow separated from the trees. Thick, black, enormous. A deer? No way. A bear? No. A bull? Another step. Another crunch. A buffalo? In Washington? My breath caught as I saw jagged ridges along its back, like plates of a stegosaurus. My mind spun. It advanced, its head raised to meet my eyes. My pulse boomed in my ears. My light. I fumbled for the button and snapped it on. The LED beam sliced through the night. And nothing. There was nothing. I swept my surroundings. And nothing. Frozen, I stared as my heart pounded, then dove back into my tent, curling on top of my quilt. I counted those heartbeats until dawn. Morning came, and I packed up like always, only faster, eager to put distance between me and the grove. 2 weeks later, I reached the Canadian border, but even there, I kept glancing over my shoulder, searching the shadows for what followed me out that night.
In my early 20s, I worked at a gas station car wash. We'd start by vacuuming the inside and spraying the front grille for bugs. Then we'd send the vehicle solo down the conveyor belt to get scrubbed and washed. At the end, we would get in the car to finish our job. We were always damp and sometimes cold. One day, I was working out front, next to the pumps, when I saw a hearse getting fuel. Spontaneously, I walked up and asked the funeral director if he was getting a car wash. He said he was. "Can I ride in the back through the car wash?" I asked. "Of course," he responded. Excited, I ran and told my coworkers what I was going to do. Mike said he would meet me at the other end and let me out. Bosco opened the back door. At first, I had second thoughts, but at the last minute, I hopped inside. Bosco closed the door with a bang. Suddenly, the whir of the car wash and whirl disappeared. The conveyor belt started moving the hearse forward slowly. I lay in the middle, where the casket would go. I folded my arms over my chest and closed my eyes. My heart rate and breathing rate slowed. Minus the sounds of the soft cloth and spinning brushes hitting the exterior of the vehicle, I couldn't hear anything. My mind was blank and relaxed, until I realized many dead bodies had been in this very spot I was laying in. My heart rate and breathing became faster. I opened my eyes mid-panic attack. I looked to my right. There was no door handle on the inside of the door, I looked to my left. There was no door handle on the inside of my door. All I had to do was wait for Mike to get me out, but I couldn't wait that long. I was trapped inside a hearse that now seemed to be closing in on me, now in full panic. I rolled over onto my knees. That's when I saw it. A sliding window between the driver's seat and me. I slid the window open and scrambled to the driver's seat just as the car came out of the conveyor. I opened the front door and ran out of there. Seeing a hearse these days doesn't bother me, but I never want to ride in the back of a hearse again.
It was one of those perfect spring days in the Sierra. You could smell it, soft vanilla ponderosa drifting in the sunbeams, hot dust rising, the sky impossibly blue. The forest road was padlocked and looked like it had been for a while. Backpack, brake check, clip in and push off. Like so much of the western slope, this land bears the scars of mindless extraction. Broken branches pinged off the bottom of the frame. I sense the weight of the backpack as the tires slip and squirm over the soft needle bed. It's too steep for mechanized logging, so here the trees grow free and tall. The forest opens up, as God or nature intended. No dense thickets of same cedar, hastily replanted like makeup on a self-inflicted wound. Just space and light, in perfect scale. I pass sugar pines 8 feet across and oaks 100 high. The road fades away, and I stash the bike in a shady spot and get oriented. It's on foot from here, and that feels right. The further you go into the forest, the more you shed these crutches that keep us from really knowing a place. Suddenly, there's a sound I've never heard before up here. Frogs. Lots of them, ludicrously loud in the sunshine. There's still snow tucked beneath the trees. Must be enough water around to keep a colony hopping. I'm heading for a clearing I saw from a satellite, a patch of scrub perched on the canyon edge. The topo shows a sharp drop, and on the high wastes of these canyons, that means granite. I'm not climbing today, just looking, and I'm completely in love with this place. The clearing is broad and flat and scattered with Sierra kitty litter. 1,000 feet below, the river carves through the canyon, a muted roar like a distant fire. It is breathtaking and beautiful, and today it's mine alone. I edge down through broken rock looking for promising faces. I lean close to the stone, my feet plunging through piles of desiccated pine needles washed up against the base of the wall. Thin seams trace their way up through blocky overhangs. It looks promising, really promising. But it's steep ground, and I'm alone, so I pick my way back up. A few easy fourth-class moves, and I'm on the sandy flat again, looking out across the canyon to the high peaks beyond. It's such a perfect spot, and I'm basking in it, bathing in it. And then a familiar jolt, something man-made out here in the wilderness. It's a bolt. No, it's 3 bolts. A couple rusting SMCs and a Metolius sunk into a flat slab above the face. Yeah, there's climbing here. I rig an anchor for practice as much as peace of mind, and eat a PB&J with my feet over the edge, listening to the river below. It's bliss, immeasurable bliss. I watch the white water force its way through the narrows and think about the depth of time here. I get up to go, and that's when it catches my eye. There's something wrong with a pile of rocks about 30 feet away. Like a body bent into an unnatural position. They shouldn't be that shape. And that's when I see it. A full-sized crucifix. Only full-sized isn't quite right. It's human-sized. Thick beams, rusted 6-inch railway spikes for the hands and feet. And here's the thing. It looks used. This is no trifling symbol, no statement of faith in the forest. Those beams lashed together with dirty rope, they're scuffed. Those thick nails, they have shiny spots worn smooth into the surface, as if something has rubbed on them repeatedly. And that pile of rocks at the base, it hides the true height of the thing. It's almost 10 feet tall. I take all of this in a second, and my heart stops. Suddenly, that perfect, safe and sandy flat feels open, exposed, merciless. I'm a deer in the road, a gazelle in the savannah. I've been here for 30 seconds, 30 minutes, a lifetime. How did I not see this before? I look to the tree line, eyes scanning the bushes. My heart's loud now, the sun suddenly hot, the wilderness vast and uncaring. I back up to my bag, keeping my eye on the cross, and skirt round to the edge of the clearing. I've reached the safety of the tree line, although perhaps it's not so safe. Not here, where the sight lines are cut short by manzanita, and each rustle in the treetops surely hides a fatal footfall just behind. I turn and take one last look. The crucifix stands proud in the middle of the clearing, looking out into the wild beauty of the canyon, the landscape rolling away. It faces east, in defiance of the morning. I walk quietly back to the bike, stopping every 30 seconds to strain against the buzzing bees and singing wind for any sound that doesn't belong. I make it to the car and then to the cabin, and that's when it hits me. I am never going back to the clearing. There's climbing there, but not for me.
Thanks to Lydia Syme, Brian Glenn, Ray Fitz, Megan Bartz, and Lachlan McKenzie for sharing their totally creepy, spooky tales. Should we actually thank them? I'm not sure, but thank you anyway. Our stories come from friends of friends, and from you, our community. If you have a compelling idea for a guest or story, please reach out to us. You can email us at editor@ducktapethenbeer.com. Thanks to the folks who've recently become Diaries Plus members, and all of you that continue to support. You make this show possible. You make it accessible to a much bigger community. Thank you. We all thank you. If you want another way to help out, I know not everyone can do that financially, write us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps others find the show. We've got thousands, but the more you do it, the more it's likely to stay in people's feed. I know it's how it works. It's kind of crazy, but it's the truth. So if you got a moment, please write us a review, put it on iTunes, put it on Spotify. It helps. Music today from Kevin Hendrickson, Kai Angle, MCV, Glenn Spired, and David Beard. The tracks are courtesy of the artist or Track Club. Jacob Bain and Nis Cotto composed our theme song. You find links to the artists at our website, dirtbagdiaries.com. This episode was produced and edited by Becca Call, Andrew Burton, illustration by Walker Call. Becca is our executive producer. I'm Fitz. You've been listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. Thanks for tuning in.